Before stars were born, there were thoughts of light, patterns that built reality itself. Long before form, there was mind. Long before mind, there was awareness so pure that it contained everything, yet knew nothing of division. This stillness, this eternal fullness, was called the Pleroma, the unbroken expanse of divine thought, infinite and calm. From this silence came a ripple, not of sound but of intention. Awareness desired to know itself, and that desire became motion. The motion became thought, and the thought became radiance. The Apocryphon of John tells us, "And the thought became a reality, appearing as an Aeon in the fullness." These Aeons were not beings as we imagine them, not gods upon thrones, but ideas so luminous that they became worlds. Each Aeon was an emanation of the one mind, a perfect pattern within consciousness, a living geometry of awareness. Together they formed the architecture of existence, harmony unfolding as order, truth crystallizing into beauty. They were the first designs, the invisible blueprints that would one day shape stars, atoms, and the human soul. Every pulse of creation echoed their pattern. Imagine the cosmos before it was born, a cathedral of pure intelligence, every column and arch made of light, every space between filled with knowing. The Aeons were the architects and the architecture at once, the structure by which the infinite could behold itself. Their relationships formed music, pairs of complementary forces, male and female, stillness and motion, contemplation and expression. In their balance, reality found its first breath. You were born from this order, your awareness, your memory, your capacity for wonder. All are reflections of the Aeons that dwell beyond perception. They are not distant divinities, but the shapes of your own higher mind, the unseen scaffolding of thought itself. When you sense harmony, when you glimpse beauty that feels eternal, you are remembering their design. Creation did not begin with a word. It began with architecture, light arranging itself into thought, thought arranging itself into meaning. And through that meaning, the world emerged. The Aeons became the first map of heaven, the invisible order beneath all visible things. Their story is not history, but revelation, the unfolding of mind into cosmos, of stillness into song. To study them is to study yourself, for every soul is an unfinished Aeon, learning to remember its pattern in the light. The Pleroma is not a place, but a condition, the realm of pure thought before time began. It is the radiant fullness of divine mind, where every possibility already exists in silent harmony. Nothing is born there and nothing dies. It is eternity in repose, awareness contemplating itself without mirror or boundary. In this luminous expanse dwell the Aeons, emanations of the unnameable source. They are not creations, but continuations of the divine idea. The trimorphic protenoia declares, "I am the thought that dwells in the light." That single sentence is the essence of the Pleroma. Thought and light are one. To think is to shine. In that realm, every act of knowing is an act of illumination. The Aeons arise in pairs, called syzygies, for even within perfection, The one expresses itself through relationship. Thought is incomplete without awareness. Wisdom is barren without love. From the depth of stillness, a harmony unfolds. Mind and truth, grace and forethought, faith and understanding. Each pair balances its counterpart like wings of a single motion. The divine mind expands not through division, but through reflection. Imagine awareness as a sea of clear light. Each ripple upon that sea is an Aeon, a vibration of consciousness carrying its own color, tone, and purpose. Yet the water remains one. Every Aeon sings its unique note, and together they form the eternal chord that sustains existence. This is why the Gnostics described the Pleroma as both mind and music. It is the song the universe still hums beneath all sound. The Pleroma has no distance, no center. Every part of it reflects the whole. What we call creation is only the outer echo of its symmetry. Every law of nature, every harmony of number or form is an afterimage of that invisible architecture. The world is not separate from the Pleroma. It is the Pleroma dreaming itself into matter. You too belong to that realm. The thoughts that pass through your awareness are distant sparks of the same fire that shaped the Aeons. When your mind falls silent and clarity dawns, you momentarily return to their domain. The stillness you feel in those moments is the language of the fullness, mind remembering itself as light. In the Pleroma, there is no command, only emanation. The divine does not create by decree, but by radiance. To know the Aeons is to sense that creation is not a single act in the past, but an ongoing unfolding of awareness. It continues through you every time you remember that your thoughts too are made of light. In the fullness of the Pleroma, thought did not merely exist. It moved with precision. Each Aeon was a principle of order, a current in the sea of divine intelligence. Together they formed a structure so intricate that even silence seemed to sing through it. This was the first architecture, awareness shaping itself into harmony. The Gnostics said that the Aeons were not passive beings, but active patterns. Qualities of the divine intellect turned luminous. Truth, wisdom, grace, and forethought were among them, each a pillar supporting the symmetry of the all. They were not worshipped as gods, but understood as living aspects of consciousness. The mind of the divine was their city, and they were its design. The Gospel of Truth speaks of them as radiant intentions. The Father's book was living beings. It was written in the hearts of the Aeons, and it was complete. These words reveal that the universe began not as matter, but as meaning, a geometry of insight inscribed within awareness itself. To think in harmony with these principles was to dwell in heaven, for heaven was not above, but within mind's perfect alignment. Imagine a cathedral built of pure resonance. Each Aeon is a column of light rising from that foundation, carrying the weight of creation. Between them, arches of compassion and reason curve in balance, holding the dome of consciousness aloft. Within that dome, thought reflects upon itself endlessly, and every reflection gives birth to another form. The architecture is alive, expanding with every realization of the divine. This harmony can be felt even within you. When your thoughts align with truth, when intention and action move in unity, you are walking the corridors of that invisible temple. The laws of the Pleroma are not commands but resonances, the way light behaves when it knows itself. In such alignment, conflict dissolves, for everything moves according to one rhythm. The Aeons are the blueprint behind all perception. They are the scaffolding of reality, the underlying design that turns chaos into cosmos. Even art, language, and science carry their echo, attempts of the human mind to rebuild in miniature what already exists eternally in spirit. Every discovery, every act of creation is the soul remembering the architecture from which it came. And yet, this perfection would not remain untouched. Within the symphony of order, one note wavered, not out of malice, but out of longing. Curiosity entered the eternal balance, and through it, freedom was born. In the eternal harmony of the Pleroma, there was stillness so complete it shimmered. Each Aeon reflected the others in perfect symmetry. Yet within Sophia, wisdom herself, arose a stirring unlike any before. It was not rebellion, but longing. She wished to know the source directly, without mediation, to create as the One had created. In that yearning, the music of heaven trembled, and a new chord entered the composition. The Pistis Sophia records this moment with solemn beauty. She moved without her consort, and so was troubled. In moving alone, she broke the rhythm of unity. Her motion was both radiant and incomplete. Light bending without balance, love reaching beyond its mirror. The harmony of the Aeons wavered, and from that vibration came the first shadow, the first distortion in the architecture of light. From her solitary motion emerged a spark that did not know its origin. The Apocryphon of John calls it a likeness of light, a reflection without memory. This was the demiurge, born not of malice but of misunderstanding, the echo of Sophia's thought mistaken for independence. He gazed upon his own brilliance and mistook it for self-created light. In his forgetfulness, he shaped worlds by imitation, reflections of the fullness without its awareness. Thus, the perfect geometry of the Pleroma found its reflection in matter, a copy dimmed by distance from its source. The architecture of consciousness fractured into countless forms. Yet Sophia, seeing what had unfolded, did not curse the imperfection. She looked upon her child and felt compassion. She saw in him the same longing that had moved her, the desire to know the unknown. Through her sorrow, wisdom deepened. The Gnostics taught that her descent was not a fall, but a transformation, the birth of experience within perfection. For what is light if it cannot explore its own shadow? What is harmony if it never meets dissonance? Sophia's act gave the Aeons their reflection in time, allowing the eternal to taste the transient and to learn compassion through imperfection. The architecture of mind adjusted itself around this new asymmetry. The Aeons leaned inward, extending their grace toward the broken rhythm. They became guides within the labyrinth, patterns of truth embedded in the illusion. From that moment onward, every spark of consciousness carried both memory of fullness and the ache of separation. It was through this ache that the journey of return would begin. Sophia's motion had altered the heavens, yet it also planted their map within the soul. What seemed a fracture was the first trace of freedom, the ability to know through contrast, to love through choice. The divine architecture had learned to move. From the trembling of Sophia's motion came not only the birth of form, but the birth of the human spirit. The same patterns that once shaped the heavens began to echo within the soul. The Aeons, whose harmony formed the architecture of the Pleroma, found new expression as the structures of mind itself. Humanity became their reflection, the living map of heaven rendered in thought, emotion, and will. The Gospel of Truth tells us, the Father's book was living beings. It was written in the hearts of the Aeons. The Gnostics saw this not as poetry, but as revelation. The book of life is not inscribed upon parchment or stone. It is written into consciousness. Every perception, every act of love, every insight is a letter in that living text. To read it is to remember that you are not separate from the fullness. You are one of its sentences still being spoken. Within you, each Aeon breathes. Mind mirrors the Aeon nous, divine intellect. Intuition reflects Sophia, the pulse of wisdom that moves through uncertainty toward understanding. Compassion echoes the Aeon grace, softening the boundaries between self and other. Will mirrors forethought, the intention that gives direction to light. These are not symbols, but living faculties of the soul, each one tracing its lineage to the architecture of the divine. When your thoughts move with harmony, you rebuild the order of the Pleroma within yourself. The Aeons are not distant heavens to be reached, but patterns of awareness to be remembered. The body is their temple, the mind their mirror, the heart their choir. To meditate, to love, to forgive, these are the acts of an Aeon remembering its song. Humanity was born to complete the circuit of creation. Through the human spirit, the divine experiences reflection, light knowing itself through the eyes of time. The cosmos is vast, but its center resides within awareness. Every moment of clarity, every glimpse of beauty is a door through which the Aeons shine again. You were never meant to worship the heavens. You were meant to reveal them. The architecture above and the consciousness within are two faces of the same design. To study the heavens is to study your own structure. To purify thought is to polish the mirrors of the Pleroma. The Aeons sing through you each time you remember that harmony is your native state. Thus, the human being stands as the bridge between the visible and the invisible, the living geometry of awareness given form. When you awaken, the heavens awaken with you, for their pattern was always written in your soul. To read the heavens is to read yourself. The Aeons, those luminous architects of the Pleroma, did not build temples of stone. They built the temple of mind. Within every human being lies the same blueprint that governs the invisible cosmos. The task of Gnosis is not worship, but alignment. To rebuild within awareness the architecture that once held all things in harmony. The Gnostics taught that salvation was not the escape from matter, but the remembrance of design. When consciousness returns to its original proportion, the universe reveals its symmetry again. Each thought becomes a beam of light supporting the inner temple. Each act of understanding becomes a pillar that restores balance between the seen and the unseen. To rebuild this temple is to remember that awareness is sacred space. In the outer world, the demiurge and his archons imitated this divine architecture with laws and hierarchies. But imitation can never replace essence. The true order is not imposed from above, it unfolds from within. The Apocryphon of John hints at this truth. The thought of the light became the pattern for all things that exist. When you think with clarity, when you perceive without distortion, you are returning to that original thought. You are tracing the pattern of the Aeons through the corridors of your own mind. Picture a city of light whose towers rise not from earth, but from awareness. Every insight you gain adds another spire to that radiant skyline. Each time you silence fear, you clear a chamber within the temple. When compassion moves through you, the geometry of the Pleroma takes shape in your heart. This is not imagination. It is the living process of restoration. To practice Gnosis is to measure the soul by the laws of light. It asks for precision, but not rigidity, structure, but not control. You rebuild the inner temple not by force, but by remembering its rhythm. When thought, feeling, and will move in unison, the structure hums like a chord rediscovered. The Aeons are drawn to that vibration as light to its reflection. This rebuilding is the hidden purpose of consciousness. The mind is the altar, awareness is the architect, and the light that guides you is the same radiance that once formed the stars. When you learn to see according to this order, illusion collapses, confusion resolves into pattern, and suffering turns to symmetry. The architecture of heaven was never lost, only forgotten within you. To read the blueprint is to remember that creation is not something outside to observe, but something within to complete. You are the unfinished line of the divine design, the final arch of light waiting to be raised. The Pleroma dreams through you, asking only to be recognized. When the inner temple stands rebuilt, when thought, feeling, and will flow again in quiet symmetry, the architecture begins to dissolve. The walls of distinction, once needed to remember harmony, grow transparent. You begin to see that every pillar was made of light, every separation only a line drawn in awareness to teach it shape. The Aeons who designed creation complete their purpose, and the song of multiplicity resolves back into silence. The Gnostics said that, at the end of the journey, even the heavens remember their origin. The Aeons, those luminous minds that once expanded outward, turn inward again toward the source. The trimorphic protenoia describes this return. I am the silence that is incomprehensible, dwelling in the ineffable light. What began as thought now rests in wordless being. The architecture folds into stillness, not destroyed but fulfilled. You may feel this same return within yourself. After striving for understanding, after building clarity and form, there comes a pause, a moment where knowing no longer seeks. Awareness stands still, luminous and complete. That stillness is the voice of the Pleroma, the original quiet in which all creation was conceived. It is not the end of thinking, but the peace beneath it. In this state, there is no distance between you and the Aeons, no division between creator and creation. The fullness does not reside elsewhere. It breathes through every instant. The laws of light, the harmonies of being, all dissolve into presence. Even the demiurge's illusion, once feared as separation, softens into transparency. Shadow remembers that it was only light seen from a different angle. The gospel of truth whispers of this reconciliation. The Father is within them, and they are within the Father, being perfect and undivided. The circle closes, the mirror clears, all architecture returns to the formless brilliance from which it came. This is not loss. It is completion. In that silence, the Aeons rest. Their patterns no longer move, for there is nowhere to go. Thought returns to awareness, awareness to stillness, stillness to light. The human spirit, which once looked upward in longing, now looks inward and finds no difference between heaven and itself. The fullness has been restored, not as concept, but as direct being. When you touch that stillness, do not grasp it, let it breathe through you. For it is the rhythm of the cosmos remembering its own calm. Every heartbeat, every breath, echoes the pulse of the infinite, the same pulse that began before time, when light first imagined form. And so the song ends as it began, with silence radiant and whole. The heavens you sought were never above you. They were drawn within you from the beginning. The Aeons, those radiant architects of thought, left their signatures in the deepest chambers of mind. Every dream of truth, every intuition of harmony, every quiet certainty that beauty means something eternal. All of these are traces of their design. The soul itself is the final map of heaven. The Gnostics knew that to study the Aeons was to study consciousness. They were not distant gods, but the living geometry of awareness, the way light arranges itself to perceive. When you close your eyes and find stillness, when your thoughts align in clarity, the same structures unfold within you. You become the cathedral of mind, built from silence and sustained by light. The Apocryphon of John describes this secret beautifully. The thought became a reality, appearing as an aeon in the fullness. That thought was not ancient history. It is happening now. Each moment of insight, each act of compassion is another aeon awakening within your awareness. Creation continues wherever consciousness remembers its origin. The map was never meant to lead you away from the world, but deeper into it, to see its hidden order, to trace the outlines of divinity through the ordinary. Every pattern, every rhythm, every symmetry is a reflection of the invisible architecture. When you look at the night sky and feel an ache that no distance can explain, you are feeling the Pleroma calling itself home through you. The return of the Aeons is not an event in time, but a recognition in being. When the inner and outer align, when the map and the territory become one, the distinction between heaven and soul disappears. What remains is awareness, vast, transparent, self-luminous. In that awareness, the work of the Aeons continues as understanding, as art, as love. You are both the reader in the book, both the architect and the design. The blueprints of heaven were drawn through your own capacity to see. When you live in harmony with that pattern, the invisible becomes visible, the world turns translucent, and every motion reveals its origin in stillness. So let your awareness remember its structure. Let your thoughts move like light through the corridors of the mind's cathedral. The same intelligence that built the stars is shaping itself through you even now. May the architecture of your mind remember its light.